Jumbo, and welcome to our final leg, the final destination on our world tour. We are now in Africa, specifically Eastern Africa, in the country of Kenya. So I'm setting this to go along with the PowerPoint presentation because there's lots of pictures for you to see there. On the front page, you'll see the flag of Kenya, and on the next page, you'll see some fast facts. The capital is Nairobi, and the currency is the Kenyan shilling. The official languages are English and Swahili. Swahili is a combination of Arabic, because Arabic traders were some of the first non-Africans to come to Kenya, and some of the Bantu or traditional African languages. The government is a republic, a democracy, though it might not look exactly like our kind of democracy. They have a little more unrest, and their elections don't go as very smooth, and it's not always a pretty form of democracy. But they do elect their president and their officials, and the people do have a say in their government. All right, as far as geography goes, if you look at the map, you'll see that the equator goes through Kenya. And to the west, you'll see the Great Rift Valley. It's a famous valley where two tectonic plates meet and form a valley, and there are earthquakes there sometimes. When I was in Mozambique, which was 2 countries farther south, it's on the edge of the Rift Valley at the far end, and we did have an earthquake while I was living there. The western part, west of the Great Rift Valley, is where you have most of your farms. It's more lush, a lot more rain. The center is very arid. That's where you have your savannas, a lot of your safari tours that you think of, and the grasslands. Those happen in the center. And then right along the coast, you have a much more tropical type of environment. Mount Kenya is right here by Nairobi. It's the second tallest mountain in all of Africa. Mount Kilimanjaro is the biggest, and it is just south of Kenya in the country of Tanzania. Now, the very far north, right by Somalia, Ethiopia, South Sudan, that's desert. It's not as big as some of the deserts in other countries, but it is a desert area. Some of the earliest human remains, their bones and their tools and things, have been found in the Rift Valley, specifically in Kenya. There are some famous paleontologists, archaeologists, anthropologists. Those are scientists who deal with things from long ago. They have been in Kenya and have explored the Rift Valley in Kenya. Well, the Bantu people were nomads that came from northern and western Africa, and they came thousands of years ago. Arab traders arrived well over 1,000 years ago from the Middle East. They began trading, and some of them did settle in the area of Kenya. But after the after the Europeans came in the 14, 15, 1600s, well, by the 1800s, the Europeans had kind of divided up most of Africa, and the British were the ones who got Kenya. It was a British colony from 1890 until 1963. In 1963, they fought Britain and got their independence. So here you'll see on the PowerPoint a picture of the Great Rift Valley and a picture of one of the coastal cities, Mombasa, I believe. Their economy. They grow a lot of tea and coffee in the west. They have a lot of livestock in the middle of the country. They also have some manufacturing. They do have some oil, paper, cloth, leather. A lot of their manufacturing is stuff that's exported, especially stuff that is unique to Africa that tourists like to buy. Tourism is huge there. That is probably one of their biggest, one of the biggest things they make money on. So if you look at the PowerPoint, you'll see a picture of giraffes eating from an acacia tree. You'll see an elephant rubbing against a baobab tree. If you want to look up something interesting, look up the history of the baobab tree or the folklore, what the Africans traditionally believe about the baobab tree. And you'll find out that there's a lot of belief about the gods getting angry with it and pulling it up and turning it upside down and sticking it back in the ground so it looks like its roots are reaching to the sky. You'll also see a woman picking cocoa beans and one of the traditional tour buses in Kenya. Let me tell you, when they go bright. The tour buses are typical transportation, but they do, in Kenya, they do have one of the better rail systems and bus systems in all of Africa. The stability in the government and the easy transportation and the language are all reasons that people go to Kenya for their safari, just by tradition. Okay, so let me tell you just a little bit about the culture, the people. There are over 100 different ethnic groups that live in Kenya, and each one has their own traditions and languages and things like that. So it's very much a mix of African traditions. We said Swahili was one of the native languages. It's a mix of Arabic and some of the native languages. As far as marriage goes, most of the marriages, this is outside the city, most of the marriages traditionally are arranged by parents. And polygamy, that's where a man has more than one wife, is accepted. So the chief of a village could have several wives. I don't know why you'd want to, but he does. In the PowerPoint, you'll see some of the traditional huts, the mud huts that they live in, and a food staple there, which is ugali. It's kind of like hard grits. And so you'll see that. You roll it into a ball and you dip it in different stews or sauces. They all, of course, they do meat on a stick. What country doesn't do meat on a stick? They do a lot with their livestock, sheep and cows. So they have quite a bit of that. As far as their religion goes, they have a lot of Christianity and Islam, but it's mixed with traditional language or traditional religions. The traditional religions say there's spirits or gods in everything, in all of nature, and they have witch doctors or traditional spiritualists, as they're called, who actually can make up potions or medicines to keep spirits away or evil spirits and things like that. So it's kind of an interesting belief system. So if someone says, they're Christian or they're Islam or they're Muslim there, that doesn't mean that that's all they believe. There's a lot of mixing of religions there. And that covers a lot of your basics. Now here's my challenge to you guys. This is only a little bitty piece of Africa. I want you guys to take a look at some of the virtual safaris that I've sent, the links there. The National Geographic, there's a National Geographic article I've sent out, and Discovery Ed, the 5 Fast Facts video is up and running. Also, I challenge you to go to YouTube and look up traditional Kenyan songs. You'll find they have some unique musical instruments. And you can look up traditional Kenyan folklore. Those are stories that have been passed down for generations, and it kind of tells you a little bit about what they believe. And those are always interesting. Slave trade was really big in Kenya for hundreds of years, up until it was outlawed in the 1800s. And so a lot of the folklore that we hear coming from the plantations here and the slavery that was here in the United States comes originally from African stories, many of them from Kenya. So it's kind of neat to see the connection between those two. I would also challenge you to look up some of their food, and if you're really, really brave, try making one of their recipes, their fish stew or their ugali or something like that. It's interesting. Some of it is actually pretty good. So I hope you enjoy this. I hope you enjoy going on your own virtual safaris. If you have any questions about the 2 years that I lived in Mozambique and my experiences there, feel free to shoot me those questions through Remind or through my email. I'll be glad to try to answer them. And this is the final leg of our tour. If you want to continue going on these tours over the summer, you can let me know. Otherwise, we're going to wrap it up here, and I hope you have a great summer. Goodbye, people.